Khan Kubrat was a ruler of the Dulo clan, leader of the Unogondur tribe, who united the Proto-Bulgarians north of the Caucasus and the Black Sea and created a tribal union called Old Great Bulgaria, also known as Onoguria. There are various assumptions about the origin of the name of this early Proto-Bulgarian ruler. According to one of them, his name comes from the Turkic verb Kubrat or Khuvrat, which means to gather, to unite. According to another, it is related to the Turkic word for wolf, kurt. In English, it can be found written as Kubrat, but also as Kovrat or Huvrat. In the nomenclature of the Bulgarian Khans, the name is rendered as Yor. The main sources for Old Great Bulgaria and Kubrat are the Roman chronicles of Theophanes the Confessor and Patriarch Nicephorus, which draw information from older sources. The exact year of Kubrat's birth is unknown, but it is assumed that he was born around 605 and died in 665. The so-called Namebook of the Bulgarian Khans indicates that Kubrat ruled for 60 years, but this may have been the duration of his life. Despite some opinions that he died in 642, researchers have recently confirmed their opinion that Kubrat died between 663 and 668. This opinion is also supported in the Great Bulgarian Encyclopedia. Some Bulgarian scholars, including Bozidar Dimitrov, claim that he created Great Bulgaria in 632 after Christ. According to the chronicles of Theophanes the Confessor and Nicephorus I of Constantinople, Kubrat died during the years of Constantine, who ruled in the west. It is assumed that this is the Emperor Constans II, who ruled between 641 and 668 and who spent the last years of his reign in Italy. The finds from Mala Pereshchepina, associated with Kubrat's death, give reason to date it to around 650. His first appearance on the historical scene, attested by the sources, is as the leader of part of the Turkic troops allied with Byzantium, more likely Proto-Bulgarian Khazar in composition, which assisted Emperor Heraclius in 621 in his fight against the Persians. Kubrat came from the tribe of the Unogondurs, who at that time were under the rule of the Avar Kaganate and inhabited the lands between the Don and Dniester rivers. According to some historians, his mother was from the Proto-Bulgarian Urmi clan, since his uncle Organa, who was also his regent while Kubrat was in Byzantium, was from this clan, and on his paternal side Kubrat came from the Dulo clan. Khan Kubrat spent some time in Constantinople, where he was baptized and became close to Emperor Heraclius. Sources indicate that Khan Kubrat's exile was necessitated by the internal struggles that arose in the Western Turkic Kaganate. Khan Kubrat had 5 sons. The first was Bayan, the second was Kotrag, the third was Asparu, the fourth was Kuba, and the fifth was Alzek. Evidence of the probable baptism of the Bulgarian ruler was found during the excavations of his necropolis in Malaya Pereshchepina, in Ukraine. In 628, a civil war broke out in the Western Turkic Kaganate, in which 2 groups fought for the throne. One was led by Khan Kubrat's uncle, Mohodu Q. Taking advantage of the changed situation in the northern Black Sea coast due to the civil war, Khan Kubrat returned to the Bulgarian lands to support Mohodu Q. At the same time, the Bulgarians led by Khan Kubrat, and more specifically the Kutrigas west of the Dnieper River, revolted against the Avars, who were at that time exhausted by the siege of Constantinople in 626, and the uprising was successful. Future events after 628 and Khan Kubrat's positions in the Western Turkic Kaganate suggest that the uprising probably also had the support of the Onoguri and Utuguri tribes, subjects of the Turkic Khagan. In 604, The powerful Turkic Khaganate split into two parts, eastern and western. The lands of the Proto-Bulgarians, north and east of the Black Sea, remained in the western Turkic Khaganate, ruled by Khagans from the Turkic Ashina clan. In 628, the Unogundurs and Utigurs, two of the three main Proto-Bulgarian tribes, along with the Kutrigas, led by Mohodu Q, according to some Organa, rebelled against the Khaganate, and Mohodu Q ascended the Khaganate throne under the name Sibir or Shabir Khan, also known as Tuki Khan, meaning in Proto-Bulgarian that he was born or took over the rule in the year of the horse. In the same year, 628, Kubrat was placed, or rises, at the head of the Proto-Bulgarians in the western reaches of the Khaganate. This war ended in 632 with the death of Shabir Khan. Subsequently, Kubrat separated the Proto-Bulgarian lands from the Khaganate, marking the beginning of Old Great Bulgaria. Soon after liberation from the rule of the Khaganate, Kubrat also rejected his dependence on the Avar Khaganate. Thus, Great Bulgaria reached its apogee, successfully opposing the Western Turks, advancing from the east, and the Avar Khaganate, located and ruling to the west of Great Bulgaria. In addition to domestic political tranquility, Khan Kubrat's reign was also marked by two wars outside the borders of the state. The first of these was in the west against the Avars, in 633 to 635. By 632, the lands west of the Dniester River to the Carpathians were under the rule of the Avar Khaganate, with its center in Pannonia. These lands were not deserted. After the destruction of the Antes in 558 and the resettlement of the Slavs to the south in 600 to 610, various Proto-Bulgarian tribes, mainly Kutrigas, gradually settled in these territories. Khan Kubrat's desire to include these tribes in the united Bulgarian state also determined the war that began soon after the beginning of his reign. In 633, in alliance with the Julebs, Khan Kubrat began a war with Avaria, which ended in 635 with the defeat of the main Avar forces in central Pannonia. The consequences of this war were the annexation of the lands between the Dniester and the Carpathians to Great Bulgaria, on the one hand, and the decline of the Avar Khaganate as a great European power, which fact also ensured the continued peace on the western Bulgarian border. Kubrat's second war was against the Arab Caliphate. During the years of the rule of the third Caliph, Osman ibn Affan, in 648, an Arab army, about 20,000 people, crossed the Derbent Pass in the eastern part of the Greater Caucasus and invaded the lands of the Barsals, which at that time were part of Great Bulgaria. The Arab army was defeated, and the rest of the Arabs fled south of the Caucasus. With the exception of these wars, which were fought outside the borders of the country, in terms of foreign policy, the first half of Kubrat's reign was peaceful. In the south, close relations were maintained with Heraclius Byzantium. The two countries concluded an alliance treaty in 634, both an expression of Byzantium's support for the new state and a refusal from invasions on the Bulgarian side, and even after that, without, however, developing into a more committed binding of Great Bulgaria to Byzantium. In the west and north the situation was calm. In the east the Khazars, subordinate to the western Turkic Khaganate, were actively involved in internecine fighting and did not pose a threat. The Byzantine emperor gave him the title of patrician, an honorary high title for a nobleman. In this situation, still distant problems began to emerge in the second half of the 1940s. This was the time of the great offensive of the Chinese state of Tang in Central Asia. In 647, Samarkand fell. In 651 the western Turkic Khaganate collapsed, and in 653 Bukhara was captured. This resulted in the flight of the elite of the Western Turks and the remnants of their armies, about 40,000 people, to the lands of the Khazars, between the Ember and Volga rivers, and beyond the Volga, in the territories of modern Kalmykia, Astrakhan and northern Dagestan. On these lands in 650, the Khazar Kaganate was founded, headed by the Turkic Khagans of the Ashina clan. In 1912, in the sand dunes of the Vorskla River in the Karnokova-Borka area near the village of Mala Pereshchepina, 13 kilometers south of the city of Poltava in present-day Ukraine, two shepherds discovered a treasure, dated by various researchers to the mid-7th century to the early 8th century. It was extremely rich and consisted of more than 800 mainly gold, 25 kilograms, and silver, 50 kilograms, objects. A large part of the finds, containing masterpieces of Byzantine and Persian jewelry arts, are kept in the Hermitage. In 1984, Joachim Werner deciphered the monograms on two of the rings as Kubratu and Kubratu Patriciu, thereby connecting the archaeological site with Greater Bulgaria. There is also a hypothesis that it is associated with the death of Kubrat or even the place of his burial. Khan Kubrat, according to most opinions, died around 665. The government of the state was inherited by his eldest son Bayan, also called Bat-Bayan or Besma, in the name book of the Bulgarian Khans. According to Theophanes the Confessor, before his death, Kubrat advised his 5 sons Bat-Bayan, Kotrag, Asparu, and 2 unnamed ones not to separate in order to defend themselves more successfully from other peoples, but they failed to keep his order. In 668, the armies of the Khazar Kaganate invaded Bulgaria from the east and in less than a year defeated the Bulgarian state, conquering the main part of its territory. The Kutriga tribes and part of the Unogundurs, led by Asparu, remained on the Dnieper, while the Utigas and another part of the Unogundurs, led by Kotrag, retreated north along the Don River and settled at the confluence of the Volga and Kama rivers. There is no doubt that the subjugation of these two parts of the Proto-Bulgarians was within the power of the Khazar Kaganate, and it would have been a matter of time if at the same time the Arab raids from the south through the Caucasus had not intensified, which diverted the main part of the Khazar forces in this direction and generally engaged most of the energy of the Khazar Kaganate over the next 90 years, which perhaps saved Central Europe from a new invasion, similar to the Avar invasion 100 years before. On his deathbed, Khan Kubrat called his sons to tell them something important. The descendants of the great ruler lined up around their father and waited to hear his last advice. The old Khan showed them a tied bundle of arrows and called on his heirs to break them. No matter how hard they tried to fulfill the order, none of the sons succeeded. Then Kubrat untied the bundle and began to break the arrows one by one. Then he looked up at the young Bulgarian nobles and said to them, "As long as you are together and support each other, you will be like this bundle of arrows, no one will be able to defeat you. If you are divided, you become weak and will be easily conquered by any enemy. Know that strength is built on unity." But Kubrat's sons did not listen to his advice, and after Khan's death, each of them went in a different direction in the world. Only the third son of Khan Kubrat, Asparu, managed to create a state east of Old Great Bulgaria along the eastern coast of the Black Sea and south to the Danube River. Today, the descendants of Khan Kubrat are located there in the Republic of Bulgaria. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the World Chronicles channel and give the video a thumbs up in support.